Along the west coast of Italy, between Florence and Rome in the province of Grosseto, is the municipality of Capalbio. Within sight of where the Tuscany-Lazio border reaches the Tyrrhenian Sea and half a mile east of the Via Aurelia is a most phantasmagorical glass mosaic sculpture garden built on an old Etruscan ruin, Il Giardino dei Tarocchi, the Tarot Garden. It is the creation of Parisian-born Niki de Saint-Phalle. The sculptures are her interpretations of divinations based on the major arcana of the tarot depicted here as the Tarot de Marseille. Bonjour, I am Bea Aronson. As a fellow Parisienne and artist, I am pleased to bring you the story of what Niki considered to be her mission in this life. Niki had a storied and tortured childhood, including her abusive relationship with her parents, which flavored much of her art throughout her life. After visiting Antoni Gaudi's Park Güell in Barcelona, Niki hatched a dream while she was detained in an asylum. Niki determined that her life's purpose was to build her own surreal sculpture garden. Her career as a model and artist financed most of the garden. Niki spent nearly 40 years working with many artisans constructing this neo-avant-garde, surreal garden of joy. Her lover and confident kinetic sculptor Jean Tinguely contributed sculptures and designs to the steel frameworks supporting the glass mosaic sculptures. Niki envisioned the Tarot Garden as a wonderland where people could come with their children to delight in the whimsical creations from her mind. She wanted to demonstrate that women too could create monumental art. The garden was open to the public in 1998. Before visiting the Tarot Garden, a cursory description of the tarot deck is needed for those unfamiliar with this ancient form of playing cards. Those already familiar with the tarot may simply abide with the very brief descriptions. The 78-card tarot deck used by cartomancers or fortune tellers has two distinct parts. The minor arcana, lesser secrets, consists of 56 cards divided into 4 suits of 14 cards each, 10 numbered cards and 4 court cards, the king, queen, knight, and page or jack, in each of the 4 tarot suits. The traditional tarot suits are swords, batons, coins, and cups. Swords, the suit of swords or blades in cartomancy is associated with masculinity and intellect, but also sorrow and misfortune. Baton, also referred to as clubs. In cartomancy and occultist circles, the suit of baton is usually called wands, implying an association with magic. Coins. In occult and divinatory usage, coins are connected with the physical body and possessions or wealth. Coins represent worldly matters in general. In some decks, coins are represented as rings or as pentacles. Cups are sometimes called goblets or chalices. In fortune telling, cups pertains to situations and events of an emotional nature. Additionally, cups were the symbol of the clergy in feudal times, and thus, cup cards can also be interpreted as having to do with spiritual or religious matters. Cards of the major arcana, starting with 0, the Fool, follow the Roman numerals to 21, making 22 trump cards in a 78-card pack. The tarot originated in elite Italian courts in the 15th century, where it was used strictly for gambling and gaming for 300 years. Use of the tarot in divination and cartomancy only began in the 18th century as an initiation sequence to be used to establish a path of spiritual ascension and evolution. All but a few of the sculptures in Niki de Saint-Phalle's Tarot Garden are based on the major arcana, the trump suit of the tarot deck. One such sculpture is the Tree of Life, whose branches are snakes and whose trunk is covered by designs and text by the artist. The many-headed serpent monster displays a personal love letter from Niki. My love, what do you like the most about me? Do you like my brain? Do you like my outfit? You are my star. I would like to give you my everything. Time, time, time. Our love was a beautiful flower. I took the petals and put them in a box and locked the box in my heart. The end. Card 0, the Fool. In the earliest tarot decks, the Fool is usually depicted as a beggar or a vagabond. In many esoteric systems of interpretation, too, the Fool is usually interpreted as a protagonist of a story, and the major arcana is the path the Fool takes through the great mysteries of life and the main human archetypes. This path is known traditionally in cartomancy or fortune-telling as the Fool's Journey. Niki's Fool became a golden woman with empty eyes, snakes for arms, and a snake curled up to the top of her head. This sculpture periodically moves to different locations in the garden as befits a wanderer. Card 1, the Magician, the Wizard. Most traditional cards depict the magician's right hand raised toward heaven, symbolizing divine immanence, the ability of the magician to bridge the gap between heaven and earth. He is the mountebank, or the sleight of hand artist. The curves of the magician's eyes are similar to the esoteric deck's mathematical sign of infinity. Niki placed the right hand of the magician atop the high priestess. For Niki, the magician is the card of God, the creator of the universe. He created the marvelous joke of our paradoxical world. It is the card of active intelligence, pure light, pure energy, mischief, and creation. Card 2, the High Priestess, originally called the Popess, directly linking the woman on the cards to the papacy by showing the woman wearing a triargenum or papal tiara. The use of obviously Christian traditional images, such as the Pope, the Devil, the Grim Reaper, and the Last Judgment, and indeed controversial images, such as La Papesse, have spawned controversies from the Renaissance to the present because of the portrayal of a female pope with no solid historical evidence. This card may be based around early manuscripts referring to the mythical Pope Joan, who was unmasked when she gave birth. Historical documents do reference a Sister Manfreda, an umiliata nun who was elected pope by the heretical Guglielmite sect of Lombardy. Their leader, Guglielma of Bohemia, died in Milan in 1281. The most enthusiastic of her followers believed that she was the incarnation of the Holy Spirit and that Guglielma would return to earth on the Feast of Pentecost in the year 1300. The male-dominated papacy would then pass away, yielding to a line of female popes. In preparation for this event, they elected Sister Manfreda the first of the popesses. Naturally, the Inquisition exterminated the new sect, and Manfreda, the popess, was burnt at the stake in the autumn of 1300. In Niki's garden, the High Priestess symbolizes feminine intuitive power, one of the keys of wisdom. She represents the potential of the rational unconscious, which brings understanding beyond reason or logic alone. Card 3, the Empress. She is the great goddess, the queen of the sky. Because the Empress is the most spectacular, mind-boggling structure in the garden, we will save her for last and move on to card 4, the Emperor. 4, the Emperor. The Emperor sits atop a stark, barren mountain, a sign of sterility, of regulation, and unyielding power. He symbolizes the top of the secular hierarchy, the ultimate male. The Emperor is the absolute ruler of the world. In Niki's garden, The emperor is surrounded by a circular courtyard with arches and columns with a never-repeating pattern. In the center is a pool with the 4 nanas spraying water from their breasts. The emperor is Niki's card of masculine powers, for good or bad. He is a symbol of organization and aggression, bringing science and medicine, but also weapons and war. He is the patriarch, desiring to conquer and control. Card 5, the hierophant. The hierophant is seen between 2 pillars, symbolizing law and liberty, or obedience and disobedience. In some decks, he wears a triple crown, and the keys of heaven are at his feet. The eyes hold the symbol of infinity, and above is a 3rd eye and the papal triple cross. The hierophant was the title of the chief priest in the ancient Greek Eleusinian mysteries. Niki believes that he represents a teacher, a guru, a prophet, or a pope with knowledge of sacred mysteries. Card 6, the choice. The lovers, or the choice, symbolize attraction, love, beauty, and trials overcome, the symbology of no return from making bad choices, and the consequences of innocence lost, as with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were the first couple and made the first choice. Saint Phalle's interpretation implies that there is a wrong and a right choice, but a mistake can bring one closer to the truth of ourselves. Card 7, the chariot. The chariot symbolizes empathy, providence, war, triumph, presumption, vengeance, and trouble. The chariot represents victory, triumph over adversaries, over problems. At the moment of triumph, however, is an inherent danger, requiring vigilance, for in victory there arrives fragility. Card 8, justice. Justice means equity, rightness, probity, and triumph of the deserving side in law. Inside Niki's justice is a sculpture by Jean Tinguely depicting injustice imprisoned by a huge lock. In Niki's interpretation, this card implies self-knowledge, acquiring an ability to judge oneself, coming to terms with our own dark side. This insight allows us to judge others with a compassionate eye. Real justice is not blind. It brings vision of universality. Card 9, the hermit. This card is usually thought to connote aspects of healing or recovery, particularly the kind that happens over time. In that regard, the hermit is sometimes considered the mature and wiser version of the magician. For Niki, the hermit is an experienced wanderer seeking a spiritual treasure. The most important lessons are learned through the heart. The oracle is the female version of the hermit. Step inside her and listen to her message. Card 10, the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune determines destiny, fortune, success, elevation, luck, felicity. A common aspect to most interpretations of this card within a reading is to introduce an element of change in the seeker's life, such change being in station, position of fortune, such as the rich becoming poor or the poor becoming rich. This was a standard symbol for the wheel of life. What goes up must come down. This is Jean Tinguely's kinetic sculpture with the water flowing down from the high priestess and pumped up by Tinguely's engineering. Card 11, Strength. All the decks had two competing symbolisms for strength. One featured a woman holding or breaking a stone pillar, and the other featured a person, either male or female, subduing a lion. Strength is fortitude, power, energy, action, courage, magnanimity, and complete success and honors. For Niki, a frail maiden leads a ferocious dragon by an invisible thread. The monster the maiden must tame is inside herself. It is her own inner demons she must conquer. Through this difficult task, she will discover her own strength. Card 12, the Hanged Man. The method of hanging by one foot was a common punishment at the time for traitors in Italy. However, the hanged man may be there by his own accord, and the card is meant to represent self-sacrifice more so than it does corporeal punishment or criminality. The hanged man represents wisdom, circumspection, discernment, trials, sacrifice, intuition, divination, and prophecy. The hangman has fascinated poets and artists throughout the ages. Mysterious and ambiguous, the hangman is suspended by his foot, in position to view the world upside down, thus in a new way. This card also represents compassion. Card 13, Death. Often interpreted as signifying major changes in a person's life, the card with no name has the implication of a broader meaning than literal death. In some cards, the horse which death is riding is stepping over a prone king, which symbolizes that not even royalty can escape death. The great mystery of life, without which life would have no meaning. Death, the great reaper with his scythe, allows new blossoms to grow. The card of death is a card of renewal. Being aware of death is a way of not being caught up with the vanities of life. Card 14, Temperance. Temperance is almost invariably depicted in tarot decks as a person pouring liquid from one receptacle into another. Historically, this was a standard symbol of the virtue temperance, one of the cardinal virtues, representing the dilution of wine with water. In many decks, the person is a winged angel, usually female or androgynous, and stands with 1 foot in water and 1 foot on land. Now we'll take a tour inside Niki's kaleidoscopic chapel of temperance. Niki admitted to having great difficulty understanding this card, as it was far removed from a passionate nature. Temperance to her seemed a compromise, a middle road. One day the light dawned, and she realized that temperance is the right way. She made an angel of this card, which crowns her meditation chapel of temperance. Card 15, the Devil. The Devil is ravage, violence, vehemence, force, fatality, that which is predestined and for this reason is not evil. Derived in part from Eliphas Lévy's famous illustration Baphomet in his Dogme et rituel de la haute magie, the devil has bat wings, goat horns, a raised right hand, a lowered left hand, breasts and a torch on his head, and also combines humans and animal features. The devil represents being seduced by the material world and physical pleasures, lust for, and an obsession with money and power, living in fear, domination and bondage, and being caged by an overabundance of luxury. The devil is the card of magnetism, energy, and sex. The devil represents the loss of personal freedom through addiction of any kind. Working on this sculpture frightened Niki. She had visions of hundreds of attacking devils swarming around the empress, the Sphinx, her home. Card 16, the Falling Tower, La Tour de Babel. Le Tarot de Marseille merges two concepts and depicts a burning tower being struck by lightning or fire from the sky, its top section dislodged and crumbling. This sculpture represents constructions of a physical nature or of the mind which are not built solidly. There is a negative aspect which provides a lesson. Complex mental fabrications should fall apart. Break down mental walls to see through them. Another Gentilly kinetic sculpture atop represents a bolt of lightning ripping the tower apart. Card 17, the Star. On the traditional card, a naked woman kneels by the water. 1 foot is in the water and one foot is on the land. Above her head is one large star, representing her core essences, and 7 smaller stars representing the chakras. In each hand, she holds a jug. From one jug, she pours a liquid into the water. From the other, she pours a liquid onto the land. The star signifies hope, a bright future. Niki made 2 versions of the star, a smaller one in her kitchen and a larger one outdoors in a pool. Niki's star carries 2 jugs of water spilling into a stream, waters of renewal. The star is a complete whole being, not fragmented as many of us are in our modern civilization. Her star is in context and projects nature with all its abundance. She knows the true laws of heaven and earth. Card 18, the moon. Some versions of the moon card depict a night scene where 2 large pillars are shown. A wolf and a domesticated dog howl at the moon while a crayfish emerges from the water. The card represents life of the imagination apart from life of the spirit. The dog and wolf are the fears of the natural mind in the presence of that place of exit, where there is only reflected light to guide it. The intellectual light is a reflection, and beyond it is the unknown mystery which it cannot reveal. Additionally, the message is peace, be still, and it may be that there shall come a calm upon the animal nature. For Niki, this is the card of creative imagination and negative illusion. In an incredible coincidence, or is it a coincidence? This photo captured the actual waxing crescent moon inside the sculpture's face. The moon is an interior card, mysterious and enigmatic. The moon affects the tides of the seas, the menstruation of women, childbirth, and all things connected to the ebb and flow of water. The card of the moon can be perilous or of a great imaginative power. Card 19, the sun. This card is generally considered positive. It is said to reflect happiness and contentment, vitality, self-confidence, and success. Sometimes referred to as the best card in tarot, it represents good things and positive outcomes to current struggles. Niki conceived of the sun as a bird, like those found in American Indian and Mexican legends, which she studied during her visits into the Southwest and Mexico. The bird is the creature closest to the sun. The sun is a life force. It makes everything grow. As a divinity, the sun can lift our spirits. Card 20, Judgment. The traditional scene is modeled after Christian imagery of the resurrection and last judgment. An angel is depicted blowing a great trumpet, from which hangs the flag of St. George, which references the 15th chapter of Corinthians 1. A group of resurrected people, man, woman, and child, of sallow complexion stand, arms spread, looking up in awe at the angel. The sleeping dead are emerging from crypts and graves, calling back to the book of Revelation, chapter 20, where the sea gives up its dead. In this sculpture, 3 figures rise up from a tomb, that of the child, the middle, and the old-aged. They represent the 3 parts of ourselves that must merge into one. The angel urges us not to judge others, but to unite ourselves, rise up, and become one. Card 21, the world. In the traditional Tarot de Marseille, a naked woman hovers or dances above the earth, holding a staff in each hand. The figure is suspended between the heavens and the earth. It is also said to represent cosmic consciousness, the potential of perfect union with the one power of the universe. It tells us full happiness is to also give back to the world, sharing what we have learned or gained. In some older decks, the central figure is Christ. Whenever it comes up, this card represents what is truly desired. The world represents an ending to a cycle of life, a pause in life before the next big cycle, beginning with the Fool. For Niki, the world is the card of the splendor of interior life. It is the last card of the major arcana and the spiritual fulfillment of the game. Within this card lies the mystery of the world. It is the answer to the empress, the Sphinx. Now, as promised, we return to the pièce de résistance. Card 3, the Empress, the Sphinx. She is the great goddess, the queen of the sky, mother, whore, emotion, sacred magic, and civilization. The Empress is made in the form of a Sphinx, where Niki lived for years inside her protection. The Empress is an example of Niki's signature creation, Les Nanas, big bright female dancers with small heads and huge hips and breasts. The Empress is a house-sized sculpture of a Sphinx, with mirrored blue hair and a bright red crown, a flower blooming on one of her breasts and a lavender heart on the nipple of the other. During the 2 decades that Saint Phalle worked on the garden, her bedroom was inside one of the breasts and the kitchen in the other. The interior of the Empress is covered in shards of mirror, as if a colossal disco ball had been turned inside out. The Empress is representative of the productivity of the subconscious seeded by ideas. She is meant to be the embodiment of the growth of the natural world, fertility, and what one knows or believes from the heart. A fruitful mother of thousands she is, above all things, the repository of nurturing and sustaining and of feeding others. When Saint Phalle entered the asylum in the early 1950s, she was a 22-year-old wife, mother, fashion model, and lapsed French aristocrat. Art, Niki believed, returned her sanity, and she wanted to create a monumental sculpture garden that would, in turn, heal others. It would be in the fanciful style of Gaudi's Barcarola, but each structure would represent a mystical figure from the tarot deck. She would create an alternate reality that she called a sort of joyland, where you could have a new kind of life that would just be free. I hope that you have experienced some joy and wonder learning about Il Giardino dei Tarocchi, the Tarot Garden, this most marvelous and wondrous creation of Niki de Saint Phalle.